Well, hello and welcome to another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop. This time I'm doing something a bit different. I'm out on location at Bolesworth Castle in Cheshire, and Hampson's Auctions have asked me to come and just do a walk around a few cars for their upcoming auction this Sunday on the 24th of November. Starts at midday GMT. And they said, look, just pick the 6 most interesting cars. So that's what I've done. It doesn't have to be the most fabulous cars in the sale. We've got some interesting Aston Martin and other cars, but just the cars that for various reasons appealed to me. And I thought represented maybe an opportunity or an investment or just fun, good to own, bragging rights in the pub, whatever you want to call it. And this is my first victim, the very first series of Ferrari 308 GTB. This is called a vetro resina, or fiberglass. And Ferrari, it was a brave new world for Ferrari in 1974. They brought out the Dino 308 GT4, which was a mid-engined 3-litre V8. At the time, it had 4 camshafts and 4 twin-choke Weber carburetors, 255 of the finest prancing horses, which actually made it a very interesting car, the GT4. And then around about a year later, they came up with this, which is the 2-seater version, the GTB. And I've always liked these cars. I've done loads of work on them over the years. In fact, I used to look at, I wondered whether it was this car, but it isn't. I used to look after another silver one of the 154 right-hand drive Vetro Resinas built. This car has got I've had a look through the history file. It's lot number 69, and it has a really lovely history. It's got MOT certificates going back to when the car was 5 years old. The legal requirement is when it has its first one when it's 3 years old. So it's got a continuous history from new, and it's round about 46,000 miles, something like that. So beautiful mileage, beautiful history. It's been looked after by some very well-known specialists. Quite interesting. At this time, they had various options on the 308 GTB. One was wide wheels. I believe this car has got. The other one was the deep front spoiler, which this car does not have. And another one was the sports exhaust, which almost all GTBs are fitted with now. As they left the factory, believe it or not, they had a single exhaust pipe, one tailpipe, very un-Ferrari. And in fact, the rear valance in the fiberglass moulding, they actually did a half-moon moulding for that single pipe. But the sports exhaust, which you could have on them from new, had the classic Ferrari 4 outlets. And this car has got that. Better breathing, probably slightly more than 255 brake horsepower. But this is a very interesting car. They're not very expensive to maintain. A talented or reasonably competent DIY mechanic can do 95%, 97% of the jobs on this car. Watch out for the electrics because it's fiberglass, earthing problems, as all fiberglass cars tend to have. But other than that, they are super straightforward these days. Bags of fun. You've got a good-sized luggage compartment at the back. They're lovely to drive with that mid-mounted V8 that winds up to 7,700 revs with a soundtrack to match. This is estimated at 80 to 100, which is less than they were probably a few years ago. They were up to the heady heights of 130, 150. So yeah, this is my car number 1, the Ferrari 308 GTB fiberglass. Well, another car that would be on my take-home list for personal consumption is this. There are 2 lovely 205 GTIs in this sale, an example of each generation. The first generation was 1.6 litre, 115 brake horsepower, and this is the 1.9, which was 130 brake horsepower. The brake horsepower actually wasn't that much different in reality. I remember years ago, there was a very, very talented man called Skip Brown, who did all sorts of amazing tuning conversions for these when they first came out. He supercharged them and did all sorts of whizzy things. I went to see him once because I was considering having a 205 GTI supercharged. And he told me that there was not that much difference in the real world between the 1.6 and the 1.9 litre engines, except for the fact that the 1.6 was a bit more of a cami engine, more power at the top end, and the 1.9 was a bit more torquey. So take your choice. You pay your money, you take your choice. But this is a lovely car. It's graphite grey, which is one of the best colours for the 205s. It's got a factory sunroof. It's done 67,000 miles, which is just about right. It's had a tranche of work done by specialists recently. And it's got the half leather interior that the 1.9 came with. They're just great fun. These are wonderful things to drive. You had the Renault 5 GT Turbo, the Golf GTI, these and a couple of others in the 1980s, which defined the hot hatch. VW arguably started it all with the Golf GTI, but this absolutely rocked the world on its launch. It was the Toyota Yaris GR on steroids as far as the tidal wave of approval went. They're very light, they're very nimble. The handling is entertaining to say the least, because they can go into oversteer, which is highly unusual for a front-wheel drive car. The back end can start to go. You either find that terrifying or exhilarating, depending on which end of the telescope you're looking at it from. It does need a new heater fan on this car, which is not uncommon on the 205s. I think there's actually one with the car, because certainly the early ones, and I think these ones too, it's one of the only cars ever built where the heating and ventilating fan will not switch off. It's running all the time. Don't know why Peugeot did that, but that's just a nerdy fact about the 205. So consequently, you had this, if you turned the ignition on, you could hear this coming from behind the dashboard, and that actually proved that the fan was working properly. You couldn't switch them off. Very strange, but I rather like this. It's guided at £10,000 to £12,000, which is not a lot for buying into a classic 1980s young timer. So yeah, another car that gets my vote, both the 1.6 and the 1.9 205 GTI. Well, this is a car that I've always liked. In fact, I used to have one as a daily driver some years ago. The BMW 635 CSI. I've had all sorts of connections with these cars over the years. I used to look after one who was, shall we say, for a gentleman who was at the top of his game in the music industry. I shall say no more than that. But client confidentiality. And this car is in at no reserve. This is lot 24. It's in at no reserve. It's got the 4-speed switchable automatic gearbox. Oh, be still my beating heart. This was big news in 1980, whenever it was that this came out. I think 83, 84. But what I love about the 635 is, I mean, the shark nose is iconic. It's absolutely out there as one of the design elements of the front end of a car. But this car has had a lot of work done on the bodywork. They do know how to rust. And quite often here, particularly, is a mud trap at the back, this area here, and you get rust bubbles coming through there. Nothing to worry about on this car because it's had a lot of work done to the bodywork on it. But the engine is an absolute jewel. That big silver overhead cam, electronic injected. It was Motronic actually by this stage, straight six engine. And I remember Car Magazine, they used to do a section, I don't know whether they still do, called The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. And one thing they said about this car at the time was towering poke of 635 CSI. In other words, it's got power whenever you want it. And for a relatively small 3.5 litre engine, these cars are very quick. They really are. They altered the back suspension, I think, in 1980, round about then. They went on to more of a multi-link rear end, which tamed the tail end happiness that the early cars had. And this, again, is no reserve. It's no reserve. What a lot of car. Yeah, another one from my bucket list, BMW 635 CSI. Well, this is another car that I would fancy myself. It's the Maserati Quattra 5. And this car, I think, in terms of the make and model of this year, represents a bit of an ultimate, really, in terms of the specification and the history. It's this beautiful deep blue metallic with cream Italian leather, walnut trim, but the really interesting thing is this car's had 2 owners and it's done 37,000 miles only, and it's been looked after and serviced very diligently throughout its life. I think these are excruciatingly beautiful cars. I'm going to stick my neck out now and say, so I think sometimes an elegant 4-door car can be just as elegant as a coupe. And I mean, look at the Facel Vega Excellence from the 1960s. That was a lovely, lovely looking car. I think these are achingly beautiful. So there's lots of positive things here. It has that Ferrari-derived twin plane crank V8 in it, so it sounds like a fruity V8. It's the more naturalized version of the Ferrari engine, and it's nearly 400 brake horsepower, so it's quite happy. It's got the slightly more complex manual flappy paddle Ferrari-derived transmission that the early Quattroports had. They then went on later to a fully automatic, sort of normal automatic transmission, and some people find that takes some getting used to, a bit like the Aston Martin Vanquish. That had the flappy paddles as well. Quite a few of them have had manual gearbox conversions. But just buy this car and enjoy it. It's no reserve. This car could potentially be for next to nothing, and it's in really nice condition. The elephant in the room is the reliability and the maintenance. You have to be prepared for a fairly stringent maintenance schedule on them. They are maintenance intensive. They are not as reliable as a BMW or Mercedes, but look at it. It's just got killer presence and looks, and bags of value and bags of fun. So there it is, lot number 49, the Maserati Quattroporte 5. Well, in very, very typical used car salesman speak, no self-respecting, sheepskin-clad person of ill repute down a back street in London would ever think about selling a car without describing it as one lady owner from new, whether it was or whether it wasn't. But in this case, it is. This is a Lexus SC430, and it's done 38,000 miles. And the lady who bought it new in 2002 is selling it now. And what a lot of car. I actually had one of these a few years ago, and a friend had one. I've always loved the styling on these. I can't quite describe it, maybe a bit blobby. And that's not an insult, that's actually a compliment. I love the look of these cars. They've got this fiendishly complicated but extremely reliable being a Lexus. Disappearing roof, which was a sort of the darling of the coupe cabriolet crowd in the 1990s. Almost every car manufacturer had a folding metal roof or aluminium roof for a while. They've sort of gone out of fashion a bit now for some reason, but this is a great 2-seater touring car. In spite of its folding roof, it's got quite a lot of room in the boot. It's got that magnificent 4.3 litre V8, which you can actually balance a coin on. I mean, Lexus did various things over the years. I think at one stage you can even start them from cold while balancing a coin on them, if my memory serves me correctly. But they're a fantastic engineering job, being a Lexus. Lexus were then just every bit as much as they are now on a mission to create excellence. And you hardly ever hear of things going wrong on these cars. They really do look after themselves. The car is in fantastic condition. The driver's seat heater has been unplugged because that's on constantly. Okay. And the wheels, in my opinion, could do with a refurb because the original factory paint is starting to just lift off them slightly. Big deal. This is a lot of car. It really is. I repeat, it's never going to be a sports car, but that's not its intention. That's not its raison d'etre. This is about a lovely car to go away for the weekend in, cruise around, and that it does incredibly well. And as I say, no reserve. This car is up for grabs. There's only one way good examples of these are going to go. I think this is a very good investment. Lot number 53, the Lexus SC430. Well, Here we have lot 17, a 2002 Focus RS. This particular car has had 3 owners from new, and it's done just under 35,000 miles. I think these are a real sleeper. I think their time is coming to shoot up in value. I think this is a very good place to put your money. I really do. There's what's not to like. It's got beautiful new edge styling, as it was described by the time by Ford. It has the input of one of the finest engineers ever to work for Ford, and that was the late great Richard Parry Jones. And he was the head of engineering for Ford worldwide for some time, and he actually insisted, a lot of car manufacturers at the time of hatchbacks, even hot hatchbacks, had a very simple beam axle rear suspension, which had its advantages, cost, lightweight, but it had its disadvantages as well. It meant the handling was skittish. Richard Parry Jones was not happy with that. He insisted that Ford went the expensive route and brought out proper rear suspension incorporated into this car. And that's why it handles so beautifully. They really are an absolute treasure to drive these. Fast forwards have been a thing for a while now, but this could be the next thing. It's the Escort RS Cosworths, Sierra Cosworths, Mark I Escorts. They've all flown the coop now, really, value-wise. This car, I think, represents a lovely opportunity to own something special, enjoy it, and know that your money is pretty safe as well. So there we are, the Ford Focus RS. Well, that concludes another Tyrrell's Classic Workshop video. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll be back with something else very soon.